offenders. That's what she stands for. She's going to be very hard. You'll see it. And Reform are going to hate it when we secure the borders because they will have nothing to campaign for.
Just to be clear, though, Mike Tapp, a year ago, Labour spokespeople wouldn't come into our studio and say, we're going to detain and deport, which is what the Prime Minister said in the last few weeks. They wouldn't have been talking about introducing ID cards. They wouldn't have been talking about essentially turning people back in the Channel. Are you saying that Labour, in this period in government, hasn't changed its position at all?
I can speak for myself and
tell you... You're here speaking for your party.
I can tell you very clearly that I've held these positions for years, and I'll go on to the Labour Party.
No,
if you look at more widely, if you look at the manifesto, all of this was in the manifesto to secure the borders.
We've had 5 immigration bills in 5 years. The Tories and Labour have both been on a journey over this period.
Well, that's our time up here in Birmingham. Thank you to my guests and to our audience. And thank you to you at home for watching. Goodbye for now.
It's 10 o'clock. This is Sky News at 10, our top story. A 22-year-old man is arrested over the killing of Charlie Kirk after his father tells him to surrender to police.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Police say bullets engraved with anti-fascist slogans were recovered close to where the suspect was seen. Also tonight, a Labour backlash over why the Prime Minister hired Lord Mandelson, despite a warning from the security services. Prince Harry makes a surprise visit to Ukraine to meet troops wounded in the war with Russia. Plus,
annoyed, angry, fuming that the government had let them live in that hotel.
protesters at migrant hotels come face to face with the asylum seekers living inside. And we'll take a first look at tomorrow's front pages in our press preview from 10:30 right through to midnight. Good evening. A large-scale manhunt over the killing of right-wing influencer Charlie Kirk has ended after the father of the suspect convinced him to give himself up. 22-year-old Tyler Robinson was arrested last night in the US state of Utah, where Mr. Kirk was shot and killed on Wednesday. Sources say Robinson's father recognised him from images released by the authorities and persuaded him to surrender. Officials have revealed that anti-fascist slogans were found on ammunition recovered close to where the shooting happened. Our US correspondent James Matthews reports from Utah.
This is the face of Tyler Robinson, 22 years old, college dropout, American assassin. That is the allegation. America woke up to news of his arrest, broken on Breakfast News by correspondent Donald Trump.
I think with a high degree of certainty, we have him.
Confirmation came in a news conference. There was the headline.
We got him.
And there was the detail.
On the evening of September 11th, a family member of Tyler Robinson reached out to a family friend who contacted the Washington County Sheriff's Office with information that Robinson had confessed to them or implied that he had committed the incident.
Robinson's father had recognized him from material issued by the FBI. It included footage of the assassin's getaway, having fired the fatal shot from the roof. After seeing still images of the suspect, father told son he had to turn himself in. Robinson refused at first, but changed his mind. They called their pastor, and he arranged the arrest.
Kid was smart, quiet. He never caused any problems. It was a shock.
Congratulations.
This was Robinson in 2021, accepting a university scholarship. He briefly attended at a different one from where the shooting happened.
This scholarship is available for 4 years or 8 semesters.
These are pictures of Robinson as a child, the babe in arms. As the FBI hunted for him, they found a weapon in nearby woodland and bullet casings with messages engraved. One read, "Hey fascist, catch." How do you interpret the engravings on the casings and on the weaponry?
I think the clearest one that says "catch fascist," there's not, and by the way, that's like catch like a ball, catch this. I think that speaks for itself.
Robinson had become more politically engaged recently. Investigators spoke of a conversation in the run-up to the shooting that he'd had with a family member. They spoke about why they didn't like Charlie Kirk, the viewpoints that he held.
Rest now, brother. We have the watch, and I'll see you in Valhalla.
The FBI director spoke to an old friend during a news conference. Utah's governor spoke to political fallout.
History will dictate if this is a turning point for our country. But every single one of us gets to choose right now if this is a turning point for us.
Thank you, God, for Charlie Kirk!
On the night the arrest was taking place, people in Orem were remembering the man who lost his life in their town.
People that are part of our church say things like, try and rationalize it. Oh, he stood up for the Second Amendment, and so, well, it's like just having an opinion doesn't mean you should get shot.
I think at times like these, it's important not to focus only on the political side. He has a wife and 2 kids. Like, anybody who's cheering on the death of this man is a monster. I think that's common sense. But think right now we just need to be mourning for the family and for the country. We lost a good one.
It is America's response to a tragedy, and it is a struggle.
And James joins us live now from Utah. James, a frenetic manhunt for the suspect, but in the end it was the suspect who turned himself in. What happens now?
Yeah, you're right, Gillian. The suspect who brought this manhunt to an end himself. What happens now is the legal court process kicks in. They will announce charges against this individual on Tuesday, and of course investigations continue. They still need to firmly establish that he is indeed the man they have been looking for. They have many clues that feed into that process. You'll remember, Gillian, there are palm prints, footwear impressions, forearm imprints from the roof where the fatal shot was fired and around that general scene. So that is ongoing. And of course, they'll be speaking to the 22-year-old himself, seeking, in the first instance, a confession. And it may well be that they are not far from that, bearing in mind that he's already confessed to his father. The way it happened was that his father saw those images, as we did last night, of the college-age individual in baseball cap, shades, distinctive sweater with that American flag, and clearly he recognized them. There would have been a worry inside the household about what happened next. The father had to convince the son to give himself up. And of course, how do you do that? The way they chose to do it was to contact a pastor they knew who had dealt with US Marshals, and the arrest was effected peacefully without further bloodshed. Now, of course, we wait to see what happens next, how this episode ends for America. You heard the Utah governor speak there about history. You know, this is a moment in history. Will this be a turning point, urging Americans to find an off-ramp? It was as close to a plea for unity, perhaps, as we've heard in the past few days. The worry would be that that doesn't necessarily find an echo across the wider United States.
James, thank you. Well, the killing of Charlie Kirk has focused attention on how political discourse, particularly amongst young people, has become increasingly polarised. Sky's Adele Robinson has this report.
Young people love Charlie, and young people hated Charlie.
A prominent yet divisive figure, Charlie Kirk drove debate among young minds worldwide.
Your generation has an opportunity to build a culture that is very different than what we are suffering through right now.
As his supporters directly address younger people in the wake of his death, Kirk's global reach more apparent than ever. In London, a vigil held by supporters.
What's happened is a terrible shame, so it's a terrible tragedy.
He laid his life down for young people, and for not even that, but just as a husband and as a father.
I didn't agree with everything he said, but I think that's fine. Like, a lot of stuff he did say, I did agree with, and you know, he taught me how to debate, and I'm forever thankful for that.
It hurts, obviously, to see that he's gone.
Strong men built the West and won the wars and built the building that we're in right now. And without strong men, then you all of a sudden see civilization unfold upon itself, and we're seeing that happen in real time.
Kirk's views supporting gun rights, opposing abortion and promoting false claims about COVID have drawn crowds of opponents too worldwide, including in Oxford.
We believe in universal human equality, the first of which is life.
Polarising views here on the man too.
I think people are having a lot of debate about free speech as it is and where that's headed because of his death, which is interesting.
But concern as well about what may unfold from his death and the politics that follow.
I think it was an era. I think he created this movement. He was influential and he had so much power to hold, and that's in a way come to an end. But I think it's also important to talk about it now because that raises the question of what is next.
Charlie Kirk really captured the imaginations of especially...
Among other students in the city, all who knew his name, some fear over how easy graphic moments of his death were to access.
It's a very, very dangerous two sides to the same coin. You've got mass desensitisation combined with political agendas.
And while all who spoke to us disagreed with his politics, they condemned his murder.
This is a dark day for democracy.
This is seen as a sort of normal part of political debate.
a recognition he filled a gap perhaps missing in mainstream politics.
To a lot of younger audiences, politics is something that's quite untouchable. Charlie Kirk removed that barrier by going to college campuses and speaking to people.
He's definitely amplifying the voices of rather disillusioned 18 to 25-year-old men in particular, who weren't college educated, often didn't feel like they had a voice in like the traditional parties.
When America sneezes, the world catches a cold. I am worried about what will happen in the UK because you've got this incredible rancor now, on both the left and the right, with new forces and increasing vitriol towards each other.
The death of Charlie Kirk shining a light on the fractured politics of a generation of young people. Adele Robinson, Sky News.
The Prime Minister is facing a backlash from Labour MPs over the appointment and subsequent sacking of Lord Mandelson as US Ambassador. It comes after Sky News revealed that the security services had warned Number 10 about Lord Mandelson before he was given the job. He was fired yesterday over his links to paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. Our political correspondent Tamara Cohen reports.
Peter Mandelson was never far from controversy, as Keir Starmer joked when visiting the US earlier this year.
Many people love him. Others love to hate him. But to us, he's just Peter.
Lord Mandelson now sacked. These embarrassing pictures highlighting his links to Jeffrey Epstein were one thing. The emails in which he told his friend, "I think the world of you," as he went to jail for child sex offences were quite another. But did the Prime Minister ignore the warnings? The brand new Foreign Secretary on her first visit to Ukraine to do some diplomacy of her own.
To the building of a new Ukraine.
It's important.
Instead asked whether her boss was alerted to red flags about Lord Mandelson.
New information came to light that was not available at the time of the appointment, and that's why the decision was rightly taken. And now that it has been taken, we have to focus on really the important work that the government needs to do.
Questions are now being asked about whether senior people in Number 10 approved Lord Mandelson's appointment in spite of security concerns. The chair of the Foreign Affairs Committee, Dame Emily Thornberry, has asked the government a series of questions about it, and Labour MPs are also calling for answers.
I've spoken to several colleagues today who are all absolutely horrified at the story as it's unfolding.
So what's the long-term impact of this?
One of the things that Keir was very clear about during the general election campaign was the importance of standards in public life and in us as MPs, and about restoring that trust and confidence with the British public. If this episode has taught us anything, it's taught us that the trust and confidence with the public has been eroded even further.
Keir Starmer, who spent the day at Chequers meeting the Irish Prime Minister, is preparing to host Donald Trump next week, and now facing calls from within his party to set out what he knew and why he gave our former man in Washington the job in the first place.
Well, Tamara joins us live now from Downing Street. And Tamara, when a lot of the criticism is coming from your own side, it is serious. Just how bad is this for the Prime Minister?
Well, I think certainly the knives are starting to come out. Tonight we have the first Labour MP to go on record saying that the Prime Minister should go. That's Clive Lewis, the Norwich South MP, has said he doesn't think the Prime Minister is up to the job. Now, he's very much on the left of the party. He's the only one to do so. But it's still a moment, and it really does reflect, I can tell you, wider discontent. And that is because we are only 1 week into this new term in which Keir Starmer was supposed to get a grip and focus on delivery. And we've already had the calamity of the Deputy Prime Minister having to resign over her taxes, and now the US Ambassador, which is more damaging in a way because it speaks directly to Keir Starmer's judgment in having appointed him in spite of the risks. Now, I was speaking to some MPs tonight. Some on the left privately echo what Clive Lewis has said, saying Keir Starmer has, in their view, lost the public's trust. But in the centre of the party, and one senior MP telling me this is a major issue. There are unanswered questions. Another MP told me it adds to a general air of chaos. Another one told me a constituent had told him today, who'd switched over from the Tories to back Labour, that it reminded them of Partygate, a kind of you're all the same, when Labour had promised to be different. And that is worrying. Now, some MPs are pointing the finger of blame at the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney, who they say defended Peter Mandelson's appointment. Some in the building behind me feel that's unfair, and some are pointing directly to the Prime Minister. Now, I don't think we're going to hear from Keir Starmer this weekend. We have not heard from him publicly since Lord Mandelson was sacked, and that is going to continue for the next couple of days. But certainly these questions keep swirling about what the Prime Minister knew and at what stage, and this certainly looks like a very big test.
Indeed. Tamara, thank you. New figures show that the UK's economy flatlined in July with zero growth in GDP. It adds to pressure on the Chancellor, who has set boosting economic growth as a key priority. Our economics and data editor, Ed Conway, has been looking at the numbers.
This is all about money. It's about the amount of money that's generated across the economy. That's basically what gross domestic product is. And let's just kind of look at where these numbers are, and in particular why they're a concern for the Chancellor. If you have a look at monthly gross domestic product, we get a kind of monthly estimate of just how much it's going up or indeed down. And like I say, this is just how much money is being generated across the economy and how much that has changed. It is volatile. And I think this is one of the main points of caution. Yes, it was flatlining in July, but that came after a pretty strong, in fact, much stronger than expected growth in June. A better thing to do with these numbers is to kind of average them out and just look across a kind of 3-monthly period. And if you do that, you see that there was strength in the early part of this year, but it does look like maybe it's getting weaker. Maybe it's getting weaker. And if you kind of take a breakdown of the different parts of the economy, because this is looking at overall growth across everything, manufacturing, the services sector, which accounts for so much of the economy, break it down by those different parts of the economy, which is what we're doing here. This light blue is services, which is, it's by far and away most stuff that's going out and buying things. Then you can see that services stays strong. The thing that's weaker in recent months, it's manufacturing, it's production, okay? So it's making stuff. And that's also borne out when you kind of take a kind of zoom back and just look at how things have shifted in recent years. This is just showing you that level of just how much the total growth in the economy, or rather total GDP in the economy, has been in recent months. And you can see it's been going up and up gradually. And so that now, where we are right now, it is 2.8% bigger than it was back in 2022. OK, so you've got some growth there, gradual growth, not nothing to write home about, but nonetheless, gradual growth. But now break it down, OK? So look at different parts of the economy. You can see construction's actually done a bit better than the average. Services, so that's 80% of what we do, that's a little bit better than the average. It's manufacturing that's been a little bit weaker. And have a look at this, in particular, the chemicals sector, so an area that's been really affected by those higher energy costs. Look at what's happened to chemicals. Just in the last 2 years, look at that line. Down basically, that's actually down by 20% compared with only back in 2022, so kind of two and a half, 3 years ago. It is really striking here. And that, when people talk about the deindustrialisation of the UK, that is one of the things they're talking about. That is happening right now, and it continues to happen based on these latest monthly numbers. Final thing to go through is just, why is this relevant for the Chancellor? What does it mean for the budget? It comes back to this. This is the amount of headroom that supposedly the Chancellor had against her fiscal rules the last time the Office of Budget Responsibility looked at it. And you'll remember it was basically about £10 billion. And she says she wants to try and keep that if she's going to, get everything adding up. Here's the thing, OK? You've had all of these U-turns recently that have basically ground that away. Winter fuel U-turn, you had that. Still, the fiscal rules were intact after that. You've got the welfare reforms that haven't been able to go through. Fiscal rules still intact even after that. But if you start downgrading forecasts for economic growth, which you might have to do given the growth is so much weaker, just look at what starts to happen. That goes down really sharply, and then you're in the red. And that's the concern for the Chancellor. As she looks at these numbers, she'll be worried that if the Office of Budget Responsibility looks at all these numbers, says that actually growth is a lot weaker, suddenly she's missed her rules. And then we all know the debate that's been going on at the moment. Do you have to have tax rises to get that up into positive territory? So it all fits together, and that is why these GDP numbers are something the Chancellor will be focusing on.
Ed Conway there. Prince Harry has made a surprise visit to the Ukrainian capital, Kyiv. The Duke of Sussex, who served 10 years in the British Army, made the trip to meet military personnel seriously injured in the war with Russia. It caps a busy week for the Prince, who reunited with his father, the King, on Wednesday for their first meeting in more than a year. Laura Bundock reports.
His arrival in Ukraine was unexpected, but not entirely surprising. And Prince Harry was warmly welcomed to Kyiv, hugged by the woman who'd encouraged him to come. This was a meaningful mission. The Duke of Sussex wants, we're told, to do everything possible for those wounded in the war. And with his Invictus Games Foundation, he met injured soldiers. He knows his presence here means a lot.
Well, Prince Harry is the person whom everybody in the world knows. So this brings a new visibility to the war we are in, and it brings visibility to the human price that we are all paying for this war. Prince Harry has been well known for taking care of the wounded soldiers. He's here on that mission as well. And unfortunately, we have thousands and thousands of people who have lost their limbs.
This isn't his first time in Ukraine. He was here in April this year, visiting a rehabilitation centre in Lviv. His Invictus Foundation's been helping injured Ukrainian soldiers, with many taking part in the Invictus Games, widely seen as one of Prince Harry's big successes.
This whole trip has felt like a reset for Harry. He's been bouncy, relaxed and upbeat. After the previous negative narrative, there's now a renewed positivity.
For the Duke of Sussex, it's been a successful few days, a series of engagements and that meeting with his father. Harry's hinted he'd like to visit more often. That now seems much more likely. Laura Bundock, Sky News.
The government's controversial use of asylum hotels has sparked protests across the country, including in the town of Tamworth. Demonstrations there last month were peaceful, but last year it was the scene of violence. Now a group of asylum seekers from a local hotel have sat down to speak with some of the town's residents. Our social affairs correspondent, Becky Johnson, was at the meeting and has this report.
Why did you go?
Because the group of friends that I was with are angry at the asylum seekers for being put in the hotel.
Tom was at this protest outside the migrant hotel in Tamworth last month as demonstrations spread around the country. It was a peaceful protest, unlike last summer. Tom went to this one too. Migrants filmed from inside as the hotel was attacked. Resentment here is rife, so these men who are staying at the hotel have agreed to sit down with locals, including Tom, to chat. They all came to the UK in small boats.
When you watch that demonstration of people outside the hotel where you're living who basically don't want you here in this country, how does that make you feel?
It's make me sad. It make me so feeling sad. We left when our country have the troubles, so we should have in this world should we have the humanity.
19-year-old Noor from Afghanistan speaks the best English of the group. They listen as people explain why the protests happened.
They were annoyed, angry, fuming that the government had let them live in that hotel.
I think they feel like they're living better than the British people, some of them.
It's what we do wrong. The Home Office just accept our asylum seeker.
When people protest, I'm like, why don't you protest near the government? Why don't you take your issue to there?
More annoyed with the government than you guys.
Yeah.
But some of the locals here question why so many migrants choose Britain.
Because the UK person have respect Islam.
We want to come to UK because we have some relatives here.
Some people in the UK see how the asylum seekers are coming over to Britain because they see it as a place to get the golden ticket.
You get to stay in a hotel, you get the free healthcare.
Could you have claimed asylum in France?
No.
Why not?
Because my only hope was England. I should reach myself there.
Because of the language in your relatives?
Language, relatives, and some fertility facilities, and for better for education.
Better prospects.
Education, yeah, exactly.
These men are aware that this summer's protests began in Epping because an asylum seeker there had sexually assaulted a schoolgirl. Can you understand why some British people are angry?
Yeah, crimes, yeah. When they're doing the crimes, they